It was done too well. It left out too many things.
So can you speak on Curtis Jackson? 50 Cent said that this is the first one. He
I'm
said
sure.
there's
I'm sure.
hundreds of hours of more footage.
I'm sure. There was hundreds of hours of that was confiscated from all of Diddy's homes in that HSI raid that never made it to the trial. I wonder where it made it to.
When 50 Cent announced his Netflix documentary on Diddy back in December 2023, everyone assumed the biggest names in the investigation would be front and center. Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard who'd been exposing secrets for years. Jaguar Wright, the outspoken singer who'd been calling out the industry long before anyone else. These were the two people who had more receipts than anyone, so why weren't they in the documentary? The answer reveals something Netflix probably didn't want you to know. And now that both Gene Deal and Jaguar Wright have spoken publicly about what happened behind the scenes, the full picture is finally starting to make sense. Let's start with Gene Deal, because his story exposes exactly how these documentaries actually get made. Gene was with Diddy for years. He wasn't just some random security guard. He traveled with him, witnessed the business dealings, saw the parties, and most importantly, he kept receipts. Photographs, documents, and according to Gene, even video footage. When 50 Cent started putting together his documentary, Gene Deal seemed like the obvious choice for a key interview. And at first, that's exactly what was supposed to happen. According to Gene, he had a 45-minute phone conversation with 50 Cent himself. They talked about everything: the old days, the bad boy era, the street stuff, the security operations, City College, the notorious B.I.G. and Tupac situation. Gene was ready to bring in Kirk Burrows to discuss the business side, and Tim to talk about the early days growing up around Diddy. He had the whole thing mapped out. 50 told Gene they would spare no expense. Whatever he needed, they'd make it happen. But then Gene started dealing with the actual production team, and that's when everything fell apart. According to Gene, when he spoke with one of the producers, the conversation turned hostile almost immediately. She allegedly questioned his credibility, talked down to him, and then said something that made Gene reconsider the entire arrangement. Gene claims she told him directly that 50 Cent didn't actually have control over what went into the documentary. He didn't determine who got paid or what footage made the final cut. Despite his name being all over the promotion, the production team was making the real decisions. For Gene, that was a deal breaker. He wasn't doing this for the money. He wanted to back up what 50 Cent had been saying publicly for years. But if 50 didn't actually have creative control, Gene didn't see the point. There's another layer to this story that Gene has discussed publicly. He claims that when he originally spoke with the producers, he laid out exactly how the documentary should be structured. He told them what he had, what he was bringing to the table, his photographs, his connections, his first-hand knowledge. According to Gene, elements of his approach ended up in the final product, but without him actually participating.
A lot of people want to know why you wasn't in it, man.
Well, first and foremost, I thought I was going to be in the documentary at first until I started talking to that director. I think her name is Stapleton. I don't know her name. I don't know, man. Me and 50 talked like 45 minutes. The producers had been calling me and everything. So this one night, 50 called me up and, they got him on the phone, man. He was just talking. We was talking about old time down with Black Hands, sit down with, with Puff Kids, the whole Puff situation, and this documentary that he's gonna be doing. You know what I'm saying? So I told him that I was going to, have Kirk and Tim. Kirk would be the one who talk about the business part of it. Tim would be the one who talk about the growing up phase with Diddy and everything and over there working in the record industry with him and stuff like that. They was like family. And I was gonna talk about, the street stuff, what was going on with Bad Boy, with the security, with Wolf, with the City College, with, the time that I knew about when I was with him up until about early 2004, something like that. But basically the streets and then the traveling with him and the atmosphere and everything. And then go back into the Notorious Big stuff with the Tupac and the whole 9 years, all the stuff that I knew. You know what I'm saying? So we was talking, and he sounded like, yo, listen here, they gonna spare no expense with this whole documentary. So I said, all right, cool. And then she was calling me like I was lying. I was like, yo, who do you think you talking to? You know what I'm saying? And she was talking about, there's no way nobody paid. Nobody what? I say, first of all you people come with these documentaries and stuff, the first thing you tell me, y'all tell these people out here that y'all don't pay, and y'all pay. If you can make a picture look like $10,000, $15,000, you know what I'm saying? You can sit here and tell me that you're gonna pay me for my time sitting right down here with y'all. You understand? So then, one thing led to another, and I was like, yo, all right, well then, F you, I spoke to 50, and then she said 50, and this is exact words that came out her mouth. 50 does not determine what goes in and go out of this documentary. And he definitely don't pay, he determine what somebody get paid. It's not his documentary like that. I was like, oh, so if it's not his documentary and I spoke to him like that, I don't need to be doing nothing with you, because I'm doing this on the strength of him. But you gonna pay me if I do it. So it went back and forth, you know what I'm saying, for a little bit, and then they had Kirk Burrows giving me calls and everything like that. What are you calling me for? You know what I'm saying? I'm not, get out of here. I know what kind of dude you is anyway. Me and you cool and everything, Kirk, but don't call me about no business with this stuff like that. And then what I found out is that he was making a deal, cutting a deal for himself as well as Tim.
Now here's where Freddie P's account adds some important context. Freddie P, who's been vocal about the Diddy situation and has made some serious allegations of his own, says he also spoke with 50 Cent's team. According to Freddie, 50 was adamant about one thing. He didn't want this documentary to be about money. He wanted people who were genuinely affected by Diddy to tell their stories without financial incentive. The logic was simple. If you pay people to talk, it undermines the authenticity of what they're saying. Freddie gave 50 credit for that approach. In his view, 50 was the only person on that team who actually cared about the victims getting their stories out rather than creating content for clicks. But this created a conflict with Netflix's approach.
But what Fifth was doing was, he wasn't budging. I give him credit for that, you know what I'm saying? They're like, hey man, it wasn't even about the money. It was basically a response from his team, basically like, listen, we doing this on the strength of, we want people to get their story out. We want people who really was affected by him to tell their story. We don't want to base this on money. If we base this on money, then it kind of salts down, you know what? So a lot of people, when you see them telling their stories on that DVD, that's why I give the authentication of it. Is so he made sure that you was only here to, if you want to tell it, tell it. I ain't trying to put nothing in your pocket. I ain't trying to incite you or coerce you to tell nothing against this man that didn't happen. If you gonna tell it, tell it. If you got something to say and you really want the world to hear it, say it. I'm not gonna pay you extra to do it. And I gave them respect for that. And basically, they were basically like, man, this not money motivated. You know, we're not moving numbers around just so people can come talk.
Gene Deal wasn't asking for millions. He simply wanted compensation for his time and expertise. When the production team allegedly dismissed that and treated him dismissively in the process, Gene walked away.
I have a problem with the documentary, and I'm just gonna let you know that the reason I have a problem with the documentary is that they know that they took my idea. You understand? They know that when I came to them, I laid out what they should do and how the documentary should be. You understand? She can say whatever she want to say. I talked to those producers before I even talked to her. They wanted to know what I had, what I was bringing, my pictures, all that stuff like that. And I told them about me, Tim, and Kirk.
So that explains Gene Deal. What about Jaguar Wright? Jaguar's situation is different, but it points to the same underlying issue. Jaguar Wright has been talking about industry corruption for years, long before the Diddy arrest. Long before it became mainstream conversation, Jaguar was on podcasts and interviews naming names and making allegations that most people dismissed as conspiracy theories. When the Netflix documentary was announced, many assumed she'd be the star witness. But Jaguar refused to participate. According to Jaguar, her concern was never about money or screen time. It was about what the documentary would actually say, and more importantly, what it wouldn't say. After watching the final product, Jaguar made her position clear. In her view, the documentary was too polished, too controlled, and left out too many important details. She specifically pointed out that certain names were conspicuously absent from the entire production. No mention of other industry figures who, according to Jaguar, were connected to the same circles. No exploration of how this allegedly went on for decades without anyone in positions of power intervening.
The story isn't over. I agree. Like, that's the thing. The story's not even being told. Because in order to tell the actual whole story, you would have to include everyone that is involved. But no, this is about saving the industry and blaming it all on Diddy. Saving the industry and blaming it all on Diddy. Okay, Diddy's going to jail. He's going to do his time. I don't know what that appeal is looking like right now. Because see, the one thing that all of this documentary shit is doing is definitely fucking up his possibility for an appeal to get out early. Especially with the judge and them and the appeal board having to look at the footage of him sitting there with Mark Agnifilo, pretty much working on how to fix the trial.
And for him to be watching the feds watching him.
Yeah, filming the feds. Watch.
Filming.
If the complete and utter truth comes out, three things happen. The entertainment industry collapses completely. Millions, possibly billions of advertising dollars don't get made. People go broke. Companies go under. That's why they hate me. Not because I'm telling the truth on people. Because I'm telling the truth about the system. And I'm showing people the reality that the only thing that matters is that dollar. These entities, these companies, they don't care about none of these people. They don't care about none of these victims. They don't care about the perpetrators. They don't care about the prey. Shit, half the time, they're encouraging the predator. They don't care. It's all about the money.
Jaguar's theory is straightforward. The documentary was designed to make Diddy the sole villain while protecting everyone else. Blame it all on one person, let him take the fall, and the rest of the industry continues operating as usual. Whether you agree with that assessment or not, it explains why she stayed away. Jaguar didn't want to be part of something she viewed as a controlled narrative, rather than a genuine investigation. There's a specific clip that Jaguar has referenced multiple times. The footage of Diddy with his attorney, allegedly discussing legal strategy while being filmed. The footage that became one of the documentary's biggest talking points. Jaguar's question is simple. If this documentary was announced in December 2023, how did Netflix end up with footage that came from a road videographer who was apparently with Diddy during his legal preparations? She's not accusing anyone of anything specific. She's just pointing out that the timeline raises questions about how this content was acquired and who benefited from its release.
He announced he was going to be doing the documentary December 2023 with Netflix. And the star footage that you use to get people to re-upload or resubscribe to Netflix to make this the #1 in their TV shows division for almost 2 weeks straight. Beating out Stranger Things. How much stranger is that?
I'm not Beckham.
This footage didn't even exist when you said you were going to be doing this documentary. So we've got a videographer, a road videographer that has this very, very, very explosive, very explosive footage of him literally sitting on camera, planning how to go after survivors, how to poison the jury pool, how to fix his trial in advance before he's even arrested. I mean, like, is anybody not forgetting when Mark Garrett, when Garrett, no, not Garrett Goose, when Mark Agnifilo was sitting there talking to the sons in the hallway, and they're sitting there filming, and he's sitting up there, yeah, well, see, what we got to do is we got to go and we got to put countersuits on all of these people. We have to create lawsuits ourselves. He's sitting there talking about creating lawsuits to affect public perception. He's talking about that with the kids.
Now, here's where things get even more complicated. Less than a week after Gene Deal publicly warned that there would be retaliation against 50 Cent, Diddy's sons announced they were partnering with Zeus Network for their own documentary. According to the trailer released in late December, Justin and Christian Combs will be presenting their family's side of the story. The teaser even shows them receiving a collect call from the federal correctional facility where Diddy is currently serving his sentence. Gene Deal predicted this exact move. He said publicly that Diddy's camp would try to counter 50's documentary by going after his personal life, digging up old relationships, ex-girlfriends, baby mama drama, anything they could use to discredit him. The timing of this announcement certainly seems to support that theory.
First of all, they're gonna try to get his baby mama stories. You know, they're gonna try to get 50 baby mama stories. They're gonna try to get girls that he probably dated, that he had problems and issues with and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna try to do the same thing they probably did to R. Kelly or Puff or whatever like that, and people tell their stories. You understand? But, you know, they trying to retaliate on what he did. Let him go ahead, bruh. Because I think he ready for it. You don't do this and you don't do the stuff that he did or sign on to the stuff that he did with Puff. Unless you got your in order. Don't throw no stone if you live in a glass house. Don't throw no stone if you live in a glass house. I believe 50 ready for it, if they come at him any kind of way.
What makes all of this significant is what it reveals about how these stories actually get told. 50 Cent put his name and reputation behind this documentary. He's been posting about Diddy for years, long before it was safe or popular to do so. But according to multiple people who were approached for the project, 50's creative control was limited by Netflix's production apparatus. Gene Deal, Jaguar Wright, and Freddie P. all have different perspectives on what happened. But they agree on one thing: the documentary that made it to Netflix wasn't the complete story. 50 has publicly stated there are hundreds of hours of additional footage that didn't make the cut. He's talked about wanting to do a second season, potentially releasing it on YouTube where he'd have more control over the content. Whether that actually happens remains to be seen. For now, here's what we know for certain. Gene Deal was in talks to participate but walked away after allegedly being disrespected by the production team and learning that 50 didn't have final say over the content. Jaguar Wright refused from the beginning because she didn't trust that Netflix would tell the full story. And both of them have continued speaking publicly about what they claim the documentary left out. The Diddy story isn't over. His legal situation is still unfolding. More civil suits are being filed, and now there's apparently going to be a counter-documentary from his own family. What started as 50 Cent's attempt to expose the truth has turned into something much bigger, a battle over who gets to control the narrative about one of the most powerful figures in hip-hop history. The question that Jaguar keeps asking is worth considering. If Diddy was doing what he's been convicted of for decades, how is it possible that no one around him knew? And if people did know, why aren't their names in any of these documentaries? That's the question no one seems willing to answer. Drop a comment below. Do you think the Netflix documentary told the whole story? Or do you agree with Gene and Jaguar that the most important details were deliberately left out? And make sure you're subscribed because this story is far from finished.